Hello, hello, hello. So, we're going to chat about a couple of things, but let me introduce myself. My name is Prudence, and I am the mastermind behind Master Your Mint. I believe that everybody should be able to use their money to live the life that they want, whatever that life is for you. For some of us, we're business owners. So that also means that we have to manage our business so that we can have profitable enterprises that will allow us to have the money to live the life that we want to. It's tax season, so we're going to talk about some tax stuff today. We're also going to talk about getting ready for tax season. We're going to talk about pets, how pets can qualify for tax deduction. And after all that heavy stuff, we're going to talk about and get some reminders about finding your passion and finding the reason for why you're here and why you're even enduring all of this stuff. So let's start by talking about getting ready for tax season. It's usually a heavy thing for most people. It's extremely heavy for business owners because it involves gathering a lot of stuff. So let's talk about how to get ready for tax season. First off, gather all your necessary documents. You're probably going to be getting 1099s from companies that you worked for. You might need to be sending out 1099s to people that you worked with or W-2s. If you have a spouse, you need to collect all of their documents as well, because if you're married filing jointly, you need to know what that is. You need everybody's social security number. You need EIN numbers for the businesses. You need all of that stuff. So gather all of the necessary documents and forms. First thing. Then determine your filing status. There's 4 filing statuses. There is single, there's married filing joint, there's married filing separate, and there's head of household. Married filing joint is very self-explanatory. If you're married, you and your partner file a tax return jointly, report both of your income, report both of your losses if appropriate, and we determine your tax liability that way. If you're married filing separate, that's actually the least favorable tax filing status. And so it's not really encouraged, but in certain circumstances, it is the best thing to do. And talk with your preparer. They'll help you sort through whether that's a better option for you or that is the option for you. So married, filing separate. Single, pretty obvious, right? If you're single, if you're unmarried, if you're not legally married, then you're determined as single. If you're living with your boyfriend, but you're not legally married, then you're single. If you're living with your roommates, your parents, your friends, and you are independent and taking care of yourself, you're not a dependent of anybody else, you're single. File single. Head of household is where it gets a little bit tricky, but head of household just means that you're running a household. So if you have a dependent in your household, then you are head of household and you add that dependent to your tax return. So your filing status. The other thing you want to do is to calculate any deductions, credits, and benefits. Now, this is where the business owner stuff really matters, because in this case, as a business owner, you are going to gather all of your income. You're going to gather all of your expenses. You're going to do the mathematics, so income minus expenses, and determine whether you have a profit or a loss. If you have a profit, it will increase or add to or become your income. If you have a loss, then there'll be a subtraction from your income accordingly. This is probably the hardest part for business owners, especially if you have not been keeping up with this throughout the year. If you have not been keeping up with this throughout the year, then deadlines become very weighty and heavy for you. Here are the deadlines that are coming up. If you have an S Corp, your S Corp, or if you have a partnership, your S Corp or partnership return, those need to be filed by March. March 15th is the typical date most years. If it falls on a weekend, then it moves to the following business day from that weekend. If you have for everybody else, by the way, if you just have a sole proprietorship, including everybody else, your taxes are due on April 15th, April 18th this year. But if it falls on a weekend, then it becomes the first business day after that weekend. So though that deadline exists, that deadline is not just for filing your tax return. That deadline also exists for paying your quarterly taxes if you're a business owner. So keep in mind, it's also the deadline where if you need to make a contribution to your retirement plan as a business owner so that you can reduce your taxes, then that's also the space where you would, that's also the date, the drop-off date, the final date where you can do that. So take advantage of that. Understand those deadlines so that you can comply with those deadlines, because if you don't, there are penalties and there's interest that accrues. If all of this is just one big mountain of heaviness, consider hiring a professional or a tax preparer or a tax person, a CPA, someone that you trust, someone that you believe is going to provide you with good and solid information. Consider hiring someone to help you to navigate that process. The best thing that you can do, though, to make it easier and make it cheaper on yourself is to stay organized. So if you stay organized throughout the year, then tax season is just a matter of gathering documents and towards the end of the year, just a final bit of documentation and everything will be fine. Now, we're at the beginning of the year. So if you want to right now start getting things organized for 2023, you'll be in a great position to be ready at the end of next year. And it's possible that you can start working on your organization now for this year while you were working on your organization for last year. You can do one and the other. It's not one or the other or one then the other. You can do them both at the same time. Take a deep breath. Tax season is here. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Tax season is here. So let's face it. Let's face it prepared, and let's do it well, right? Run your business like a business. Pets comes up every now and then, and it came up recently, so I figured I would talk about it. Your pet could be a tax deduction. They can be a valid write-off. They absolutely can. I wrote an article about it. So if you go to my Instagram, instagram.com/masteryourmint, you'll see a link in the bio. If you click on that link in the bio, it will take you to the actual article. But let's talk about a bit while we're here. How can a pet qualify for deductions? First of all, here's our disclaimer. This is a tricky space, and it usually involves some other activity as well. So you're not writing off the pet in isolation. It's usually the pet and there's something else involved. So definitely speak to your tax professional, your tax accountant to sort through that. First one is moving. If you're moving and you bring a pet with you, then some of those expenses about that move can be tax deductible. There's some rules in place with that. So you have to be moving more than 50 miles for work. And as long as you meet those qualifications, then some of those expenses become deductible. If you own a business and your dog serves as a guard animal, then some of the expenses related to the care and maintenance of that animal can be considered tax deductible. There's some rules involved in that, though, because the IRS will look at, okay, so if your business is open for 8 hours a day and the guard animal works for 8 hours, then a proportionate portion of that, of the cost related to that animal will be deductible. So that's another one. If you work in a field that involves animals, if you're a veterinarian, if you're an animal trainer, if you're a dog walker, if you're a dog sitter, if you work in a field that has anything to do with animals related to the caring of animals, then some of your expenses are tax deductible because they're business expenses, right? If you have a service dog, so if you have a dog that is for emotional support. Now, when I say for emotional support, I'm not saying, or for a therapeutic purpose, I'm not saying that you buy a dog and you declare that it's a service dog. I mean that you have purchased a dog because your medical professional says that this dog is necessary for therapeutic purposes. Could be a seizure watch dog, could be a emotional support dog, could be a dog that reminds you about your diabetic needs, could be any kind of service animal, then you might be eligible for tax deductions related to the care and maintenance of the animal. If you foster animals, some of those expenses can also be considered as tax deductible. Again, that's a part of being in the work of taking care of animals. Finally, there are a few states where sales tax can be waived or refunded for certain items related to pet care. Ask your tax professional about your state, whether there's any deduction for that. As with any tax related matter, this is one of those areas where it really requires appropriate documentation. It really requires an appropriate conversation so that you can move forward, so that you can know exactly what you were doing. All right, finally, let's talk about the fun part. How to find your ikigai, right? You have all this heavy stuff going on with taxes and tax season and sorting through all of that. So you do want to know how to find your ikigai. Ikigai is your passion, why you do what you do. And with all the heaviness, with all the things that are difficult about running the business of the business, you want to find a thing that gives you your mission in life. Your ikigai is what we call your reason for existing. It's not just happiness, it's where you discover your purpose, it's where you discover your personal mission, it's where you discover your full potential. It's where you identify what you're good at, what you enjoy, and what you can best contribute to the world. So here's the diagram: what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, what your strengths are. If you can find the intersection of all of these things, you have found your ikigai. I hope for you that you find your ikigai. Have a wonderful day.